So, today we're talking about vampires. The only reason this video topic even came to be is because I was scrolling TikTok the other day and I came across an edit of the movie Sinners that I just saw in theaters. Go watch it if you haven't already. And somebody in the comments was like, why are vampires low-key a recession indicator? And I was thinking, they're kind of onto something. So I did a whole bunch of research and we're going to figure out why vampire media is a recession indicator in the year 2025. It's like clockwork. The economy tanks and suddenly we're neck deep in vampire content. TV, movies, books. They're everywhere. So that's what we're going to talk about today. Why do vampires come back when we're in crisis? Why do they seem to rise from the grave every time the stock market crashes? Let's dive into this theory and see what it says about us, our fears, and maybe the economy. Before we get too deep into the topic, let's talk about what a vampire actually is. They're immortal, seductive, and powerful. And they break every rule that we humans have to follow. Vampires can do whatever they want, sleep all day, party all night, and whisk away barely legal girls like it's nothing and get married. They're also deeply parasitic. They live by draining others to survive. They've always existed in folklore and monster creature history, but they're also metaphors for a lot of things that we go through in our daily lives.
There isn't any other creature that has had the longevity across cultures and across time periods that the vampire has. There's something about the vampire that is us, and it will stay with us in some form or another. The vampire is probably going to return to being a metaphor of things that disturb and frighten us. But I think it's going to take a form we've never seen before because we are looking at a future that we've never seen before and we don't know how to deal with. And it's a future that could be depleting us, like the image of a vampire.
Vampires go way back, going all the way back to traditional Eastern European folktales. Originally, they were gross, rotting corpses coming out of the ground to bite livestock and relatives. But according to National Geographic, early vampires were repulsive creatures, often agricultural laborers, just as likely to bite sheep and cattle as their own relatives. But once we hit the 19th century, something shifted. Vampires got a glow up. They became elegant, seductive aristocrats, like Count Dracula. He was rich, mysterious, could turn into a bat, but he was also a predator, just in really nice clothing. And I gotta be honest with y'all, the first time I saw Nosferatu was in that episode of SpongeBob when he was flicking the lights.
Nosferatu!
So that was really my introduction to horror and really got me into creepy media when I was 5 years old. So let's talk about why do they come back, especially in economic rough times. In an article from Empire City Wire, cultural critics suggest vampire movies resonate during periods of economic instability because they embody themes of exploitation, immortality, and unbridled consumption.
Vampires, while seductive and alluring, they can tell us a lot about ourselves in a multitude of ways, and perhaps the best way to observe this is via the phenomena of vampire media coinciding with economic recession. Yeah, we usually see vampire movies and TV shows starting to show up more in times of economic crises. Think about the recession of 2008/9. We got True Blood, Vampire Diaries, and Twilight. We've been observing this trend for a while. S.E. Smith for Bitch Media details that, quote, the new renaissance of vampire storytelling suggests the stars are aligning once more both for metaphorical bloodsuckers and capitalists lining up to leverage the coming economic downturn. Connecting bloodsucking with thirstily stripping workers of their vital essence may be a direct connection with Marx's meaning, but vampires are themselves emblematic of capitalism. Many are wealthy, look at Dracula's Hoard or the lavish estates of Anne Rice's books, and also survive purely extractively, growing richer and more powerful by exploiting others. Sometimes that's by way of crudely attacking human victims, but it's more often through the creation of systems to support their existence, like blood banks, where humans can donate, mirroring real-world controversies over paid plasma donation, which encourages desperate people to give up their blood so that they can make rent. Vampires are an ideal mirror and foil for economic distress and chaos, and they're the perfect monster for recessions, end quote.
That kind of sounds familiar, right? We live in a time where billionaires like Jeff Bezos and Elon Musk send people up in the sky with not a care in the world while we're sitting down here wondering why eggs cost $6. Vampires symbolize the elite, those who suck others dry to stay powerful. During a recession, that imagery hits a little bit different, doesn't it? They're the 1%, they're unchecked capitalism, and they're sexy about it, which makes it weirdly fun to watch. And honestly, it's not just a vampire thing, it's with the horror genre overall. Just a reminder, if you're enjoying this deep dive into vampire core and to why it can lead to economic dread, Don't forget to like and subscribe. It really helps my channel as I'm trying to make more videos about pop culture and getting into spooky media. So let me know if there's any other videos or any other topics you want me to break down in the comments below. But let's get back to the video. According to that same article by Empire City Wire, researchers analyzed box office trends, found that during times of economic hardship, horror films not only increase in production, but also outperform other genres in terms of profitability. That same data shows that there's a spike in vampire-specific media during recession too, across the board, not just in the US, but in European and Asian markets. It's like we globally crave something that feels thrilling, a little dark, and lets us release tension in a way that feels still kind of safe.
This is a great question because, like heavy metal music, horror movies also get a bad rap. For some people, especially if you're prone to anxiety, watching horror can make things worse, but for others it can be a way of relieving tension. There's lots of explanations why. Some people say it's a cathartic release, others say it's a great way to be exposed to intense emotions in a controlled environment. Others argue it's the emotional release. So it's like your fight or flight response being activated, your body's creating adrenaline, cortisol, endorphins, all of which are energizing and feel good. And then to calm back down, our body's releasing hormones that make us feel safe and good. But there are benefits of watching horror. Horror provides a sense of control over your anxiety. Being engaged in a movie is like a meditation. It's distracting us from our current worries. Research also found that watching horror burns calories. People who watched The Shining, for example, burned 184 calories while jumping and screaming.
And honestly, it makes sense, doesn't it? When real life feels unstable, horror lets us channel into that fear into something we can actually finish, like a really scary movie. You sit through a scary story, the credits roll, and you're still here. There's a little bit of getting your power back. Honestly, watching something scary or watching a horror movie really lets you feel the very scary emotions of watching something scary on the screen, but it also lets you process the chaos when life is feeling very overwhelming. So it really does make sense why horror becomes so popular in times of economic stress, like when you're trying to pay off your student loans or buying a house. Okay, now we're going to look at 3 vampire media that really peak at times of economic stress, and we can kind of see why vampires would be very prominent in recession core or economic downturn core. First, let's talk about the one I talked about earlier, Nosferatu, which was a film that was made in 1922. It was during Post-WWI Germany. The German economy is crumbling. Nosferatu emerges, shadowy, creepy, silent, a figure of dread in a certain world. This is horror used as a mirror, reflecting fear of collapse, disease, and the unknown. Then we move on to Twilight. Yes, Twilight with Bella, Edward, and the whole group of vampires that come in 2008 to kind of lift us up during the economic crash in 2008. Edward Cullen was standing in a high school parking lot looking tragic while all of our parents were in the other room while we play Wii games trying to figure out what they're going to do to find a job. Twilight gave people a fantasy. Internal love, beautiful vampires, small town escapism. Young adults dealing with the economic instability found comfort in a world where a 100-year-old vampire loved you for awkward silences. Let's talk about my favorite, the Sinners movie that came out this year in 2025.
You twins? Nah, we cousins.
Like I said, is my favorite. It was directed by Ryan Coogler, set in 1930s Mississippi. It follows black veterans who open a juke joint only to be invaded by Irish vampires. The racial, cultural, and economic symbolism is very layered. According to The Guardian, the juke joint isn't just a hiding place from vampires. It's a safe haven from racial violence. And one quote from that article says, "The juke joint represents a multifaceted connection to the foundation of black experience." And I honestly think that this movie kind of flips the head on how vampires are very prominent in recession or economic collapse or economic times in America, as we see a lot of people taking their power back and really saying like they're done with capitalism, so they're literally going to do whatever they want, and they're going to make media that actually tells a story and really invokes change. Because you can even see with the Sinners movie now that a lot of people are like finally opening their eyes to what media about, in this case, like African American people, don't always have to be tragic stories or, you know, trauma porn, as some people like to call it. It's really like story that can seem as inspiring as just vampires. In this story, the vampire isn't just a monster. It's colonialism, white supremacy, exploitation. Horror becomes a tool for reclaiming narrative power, especially in a recession when systems feel like they're collapsing. So let's answer the question. Are vampires really recession indicators? Maybe not in the literal sense, but they can be symbols to something is brewing in the air that has to do with the economy. They show up when we're anxious, when we feel powerless, when we want someone or something to blame for the chaos we can't control. They let us fantasize about being free, powerful, and untouchable, even as they scare us. And maybe that's the point. Vampires survive every era, and somehow they help us survive too. That is all for my Are Vampires Really Recession Indicators video. I hope you guys enjoyed it. Let me know if there's any other topics to see me cover, like I said. And yeah, what is your favorite vampire? Let me know what your favorite vampire is in the comments below. And I will see you guys in my next video. Bye.